Time is flying. We are on chapter 6. And chapter 6 is one of my favorite chapters. Almost every single chapter in Think and Grow Rich is really, fantastic. But this is a favorite chapter of mine, and it's on imagination. And it's cool because right now I'm going through the course and teaching the course and going through the book with you. Napoleon Hill, when he wrote the book, you have to remember, and I brought this up before, Think and Grow Rich, it's really a smaller version of The Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill. Now this book is 600 pages. So the Think and Grow Rich is a condensed version of The Laws of Success. So The Laws of Success, it's a great book to have. It's a great book to have for your library. So buy it, put it in your personal library, read it, but it's a very, Think and Grow Rich is a condensed version. So when you get in these chapters, this isn't a type of book you just want to read one time, throw on your bookshelf, sell back to another company or whatnot. It's a book you continually studying it. You're continually reading the chapters. You're doing it over and over and over again until you really understand and master the 13 principles that Napoleon Hill is talking about. Now, without further ado, let's dig a little bit deeper into the imagination. And like always, I will start off reading the introduction to get the course going. The imagination is literally the workshop wherein all plans created by man. The impulse, the desire, is given shape, form, and action through the aid of the imaginative faculty of the mind. It has been said that man or woman can create anything which he can imagine. Let me say this one more time. This is so powerful. It has been said that man or woman can create anything which he can imagine. This is why the imagination is a key faculty. It's one of the 13 steps to master is our imagination. Napoleon Hill continues and says, and it has been determined through the aid of imagination, the elements of which it consists. He has discovered that his own brain is both a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought. He is beginning now to learn how to make practical use of this discovery. Then Napoleon Hill continues, and he says, man's only limitation within reason lies in the development and use of his imagination. Let me read that one more time. Man's and woman's only limitation within reason lies in the development and use of his or her own imagination. It's powerful like that. It's powerful. If you really want to achieve success in your life, whatever that is to you, we all want different things, remember. But if you want to achieve exactly what you want, you have to develop and use your imagination. And that's what Napoleon Hill is saying. Without it, everything starts getting weaker. That's why Napoleon Hill is saying every single chapter, you have to master the 13 principles. It's not picking and choosing. It's not picking and choosing which ones you like and don't like. You're going to fail at that point. It's mastering all these principles. Remember that. Now, Napoleon Hill goes on and he explains, there's two forms of the imaginative faculty. There's two forms of, or different forms of imagination. Now, in his opinion, he calls it synthetic imagination and creative imagination. Now, synthetic imagination, with synthetic, it uses, I'll read exactly what he says without explaining it. Through this faculty, one may arrange old concepts, ideas, or plans into new combinations. This faculty creates nothing. It merely works with the material of experience, education, and observation with which it is fed. It is a faculty used most by the inventor, with the exception of the one who draws upon the creative imagination when he cannot solve his problem through synthetic imagination. So synthetic imagination, to keep it simple, goes on the 5 senses, like see, hear, taste, smell, touch. These are our 5 senses. That's basically what Napoleon Hill is saying. This is our synthetic imagination. I'll explain it a little bit further in a minute. He goes on and says there's creative imagination. And this is where the whole chapter is going to take place with creative imagination. Through the balcony of a creative imagination, the finite mind of man or woman has direct communication with infinite intelligence. It is the balcony through which hunches and inspirations are received. It is by this balcony that all basic or new ideas are handed over to man or woman. So this is creative imagination is really what Napoleon Hill is talking about throughout this whole chapter. He just gives one paragraph on synthetic imagination, and he doesn't talk about it again. Okay, now let me show you kind of in my own terms of what Napoleon Hill is talking about to kind of simplify it a little bit. And we'll get this in other courses, other scenarios and stuff like that, so don't worry. So you've seen this before. So this is the body, and this is our mind, okay? Remember, our mind is made up of two sections. We have a conscious mind, and we have a subconscious mind. Okay? Now, we're split in two. Why? Making you think a little bit. Even though you're not here with me, you can't answer me. Kind of helping you kind of think, make that mind work a little bit. Okay, now remember, with the conscious mind, it's made up of what? Our five senses again. Our five senses is see, hear, taste, smell, touch. Okay? And these are what these little antennas are for. Now, with our five senses, opens up kind of a gateway of see, hear, smell, taste, touch. So this is what influences our whole conscious mind. And we've said it before, our environment. And I'm not going to write them out. Our environment, our parents, the schools we go to, the colleges, our teachers, our coaches, our friends and family, and so on and so on. So our whole conscious mind is influenced by these five faculties, as our five senses. Okay. Now we've learned that our conscious mind can kind of basically dictate reason. It can accept and reject. Okay, so we can accept over here, and we can also reject ideas. Our subconscious mind, remember, it doesn't accept, once it enters our subconscious mind, it doesn't have the ability to accept or reject. It just takes it as truth, no matter if it's a lie. Remember, psychology, if you tell yourself a lie over and over and over and over and over again, you eventually will believe that lie. Why? Because it started here in the conscious mind. Then it initially moves here. Once it moves into our subconscious mind, boom. It just accepts it as what? Truth. Now, what does this have to do with this chapter on imagination? And we talked about imagination a little bit. I hinted to it a little up in other sections just because Napoleon Hill brings it up in the previous chapters. Now, what Napoleon Hill is saying with our imagination, and I'll write our imagination over here, right here. Let me get a different color. What he is saying is the issue with our educational system, the issue with us being brought up in society, in our environment, in education is only teaching the development of our five senses. Okay. Now, the development of our five senses, that's it. We're just, if we see, hear, to smell, taste, touch, there's no big deal. On another side of the coin, our parents, our siblings, and the educational system. The reason why our imagination is so weak at this point is because we don't use it. Because when we were small, it's either been beat out of us, or we've been told over and over and over and over and over by either our parents or brothers and sisters or siblings or teachers at school. Once we hit a certain age in elementary school, we've been told, well, big boys don't do this. Big boys don't have an imagination. You're a big boy now. you're a big boy now, or you're a big girl now. I mean, how many times have you heard that in your own childhood thinking back? Well, you're a big girl now, or you're a big boy now. And you might even catch, if you have kids, you might even catch yourself saying that. But all you're doing is stifling their imagination. Then you become an adult, and I'm going to give you some homework and other courses to really, and once you get these exercises, you're really going to see how you struggle with these exercises. Right now, there's not too many exercises in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich at this course, because this course is a beginning course. But once you get to the advanced courses, I'm going to give you some exercises, and you're really going to see how you struggle. Okay? So, let's move on. What Napoleon Hill is saying is it's our imagination to influence our conscious mind. Then eventually it will influence our subconscious mind. Now, with our imagination, how do we influence our conscious mind? Do you remember? Making you think again. Do you remember? Through what? Through repetition. And what are we repeating? We're using our affirmations. So through repetition of affirmations. Remember chapter 2 of your 6 steps. Your goal. You're repeating it day and night. You should be doing that while you're going through this course. You're repeating it day and night. Then day and night, what Napoleon Hill is telling you to do. As we continue on with these chapters, he's getting a little bit more descriptive. He wants you to use your imagination in seeing the exact amount of money that you want to have in your life. Seeing yourself living that goal. Seeing yourself acting as if you already have achieved that goal. See, that's where the imagination faculty comes into play. Without it, you're just repeating to yourself just mere words, a mere sentence or paragraph. You have to see yourself in possession of the money. See yourself in possession and living a lifestyle that you want. Now, I'm using different things. It could be anything because we all want different things. That's how the imagination. This is how we, down here, through repetition and affirmations, this is how we influence our conscious mind, because it's through repetition, saying it over and over and over again, and eventually it will seep down to our subconscious mind. And once it seeps down there, we know what's true. It's accept it as truth. Once it accepts it as truth, that's when we start seeing the manifestation of what we want. This is where the imagination really comes into play. Now, Napoleon Hill continues on the creative imagination. Remember, this is the creative imagination. Make sense? Up here is the synthetic imagination. Now, write that down for you. Up here, when our imagination follows our 5 senses, this is the synthetic imagination. Right here. Down here, the creative imagination is what we want to use to influence our subconscious. Now let's move on. He continues to explain the creative imagination. He says, it is through this faculty that thought vibrations from the minds of others are received. It is through this faculty that one individual may tune in or communicate with the subconscious minds of other men. Now he's kind of digging deep here, and he's digging deep into really a future chapter. So I'm not going to go into this a little bit because he explains it into another chapter. So what he's talking about is the previous paragraph. Remember in the previous paragraph, he's explaining what creative imagination is. Then he says, it is the faculty through which hunches and inspirations are received. Then let's skip forward to the paragraph I just read. It is through this faculty that thought vibrations from minds of others are received. It is through this faculty that one individual may tune in or communicate with the subconscious minds of other men. And he goes on and explains, the creative imagination works automatically. in the manner described in subsequent pages. This faculty functions only when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly rapid rate. For example, when the conscious mind is stimulated through the emotion of a strong desire. Remember what we talked about in the very beginning. That's having a definite purpose, being persistent, and having a strong desire to achieve what you want. And what he means by this, the perfect way to explain this, and we've all experienced this at some point or another, where you've really used your imagination. You ever been really excited about something, but you're thinking about it, and just naturally you start thinking about it, you start imagining how your life may be, or maybe you're thinking about that new job you're going after. And just for maybe a couple minutes, you sit at home, you start imagining what your career might be and what your career might look like, what that might do to your lifestyle. And you start getting really excited. And it might only happen for a couple minutes before you talk yourself out of it. You start getting really excited. And and it just uplifts your whole mood. You're like kind of vibrating with positivity. If someone called you at that point, you would be like, oh, you would be jumping, you'd be jumping for joy. We've all had those small times that's happened. This is what Napoleon Hill is talking about. So when we're in that state, we're in that state of mind. This is what he means by vibrating. When he says this faculty functions only when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly rapid rate. For example, when the conscious mind is stimulated through the emotion of a strong desire. So you're stimulating your mind. You're stimulating your conscious mind because your imagination, you peeked into that imagination faculty and you started imagining that new career. Maybe that's your passionate career. It's not even about the money. It's something you really wanted to do your whole life. And you're so passionate about it. You start thinking what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be living, and what it's going to do for you. And that puts you in that peak state. That's what Napoleon Hill is talking about. Then he goes on and says, keep in mind as you follow these principles that the entire story of how one may convert desire into money cannot be told in one statement. The story will be complete only when you have mastered, assimilated, and begun to make use of all these principles. So here's another paragraph. Remember again, I told you in every single chapter, he brings up about mastery of the 13 principles. And he says it again right here. Keep in mind as you follow these principles that the entire story of how one may convert desire into money. Now, it doesn't have to be about the money. It could be anything. Okay, remember that. Cannot be told in one statement. The story will be complete only when one has mastered, assimilated, and begun to make use of all the principles. Then he goes on and he says, great leaders of business, industry, finance, and the great artists, musicians, poets, writers, it can be actors, celebrities, became great because they developed the faculty of imagination. He continues, both synthetic and creative faculties of imagination become more alert with use, just as any muscle or organ of the body develops through use. So now he's kind of going into why aren't we really getting what we want? It's because we're not used to having an imagination. We're not used to being creative. And you might be sitting here telling me, well, Chad, I'm just not a creative person. I'm more of a realist. Well, I'm telling you that you do have an imagination. You do have a creative imagination. It's asleep right now. You haven't used it for years, but you were born with it. At one time in your life, you used it. And that's probably when you were a kid, but you had it. But it's been stifled. Someone told you it wasn't appropriate. You had a teacher tell you or a parent tell you, you're a big girl now. You're a big boy now. You don't do that. You don't dream like that. Or you just went to school and it wasn't cool. And all the cool kids were big boys and big girls, and it wasn't cool to have an imagination. So you started thinking like everybody else. You started being what? Influenced by your environment, which influence your conscious mind, which influences your subconscious mind eventually, if you're in that environment for so long. Make sense? Just like, remember, Napoleon Hill gave an example, several chapters ago about crime. If we put anybody in the environment of crime, they might be disgusted with it in the beginning. Then they stay in that environment and they learn to adapt to it. Then they learn they're in it long enough, they learn to accept it. Then they learn to what? It just becomes commonplace. Or they eventually, you stay in that environment long enough, they eventually start participating in the crime. It's the same thing. Same thing, just a different situation, different scenario. Then Napoleon Hill says desire. When we talk about desire, is only a thought, an impulse. Your imaginative faculty may have become weak through inaction. It can be revived and made alert through use. This faculty does not die, though it may become coincidence, if I could speak English, through lack of use. So again, he's explaining just what I explained to you. You have the creative imagination. You're just not used to using it. So if you from lack of use, like any muscle, it's there, but you just have to start using it. In the beginning, it may seem weird. It may seem like you might be talking yourself out of it. Even when you're doing your desire statement, like Napoleon Hill told you with the 6 steps. In the beginning, when you start saying it, it seems stupid. It seems like, why am I doing this? I don't even believe it. It's because your imagination isn't developed yet. Makes sense? It's there, but you keep with it. You get better and better and better with it. Just like in a way in the beginning when we talked about the introduction of this course. Introduction with any course. It's about creating a strong foundation. It's not going from a beginner and you want to jump to intermediate because you think it sounds more professional. You think it looks good on a resume. But you haven't really went through the steps to have a strong foundation. This is what we're doing right now, is creating a strong foundation for you. Then Napoleon Hill gives you some homework again. And I bet you love the homework he's giving you. He said, read the entire book through, then come back to this chapter and write this down in your notepad. Read the entire book through, then come back to this chapter and begin at once to put your imagination to work on building a plan or plans for the transformation of your desire into money. Detailed instructions for building of plans have been given in almost every chapter. Carry out the instructions best suited to your needs. Reduce your plan to writing. Write them down. Okay, there's power in writing. Great power in writing. If you have not already done so, the moment you complete this, you will have definitely given concrete form into the intangible desire. Then he gives you one more homework assignment in this paragraph. Read the preceding sentence one more time. Read it aloud, very slowly. And you do so, remember that the moment you reduce the statement of your desire and a plan for its realization to writing, you have actually taken the first step of a series of steps which will enable you to convert the thought into its physical counterpart. So that's the homework. So homework down here, your homework, write this down. You should be keeping a notepad, okay? I know it might be a joy to listen to me. I'm not too sure, but But keep a notepad. And when you read the book, you get all the way through this course, you should have read the book at least one time. Okay, because I'm taking you through the whole book. Come back to chapter 6 on the imagination and read it one more time. Okay, that's your homework. Then on top of that, reread the paragraph we just said. And reread it right now. Even if you have to pause this video, pause this course, and reread it. Okay, this is very powerful. It's not enough to go through this stuff one time and you think you've mastered it. See, mastery comes from results. Where are your results? If you're not having results, there's something off. There's something you're not understanding. Then Napoleon Hill continues. There's some great stuff in this chapter. There's great stuff in every chapter, actually. Desire is a thought impulse. And we said this in a couple pages back. Desire is a thought impulse. Thought impulses are forms of energy. When you begin with a thought impulse, desire to accumulate money, you are drafting into your service the same stuff that nature used in creating this earth. In every material form in the universe, including the body and the brain, in which the thought impulses function. You can build a fortune through the aid of the laws which are immutable. Now he's talking about the laws of the universe, no matter what we want to say. Laws of the universe, God's law, it's all the same. But first, you must become familiar with these laws and learn to use them. Through repetition and by approaching the description of these principles from every conceivable manner or angle, the author hopes to reveal to you the secret through which every great fortune has been accumulated. Strange and paradoxical as it may seem, the secret is not a secret. Nature herself advertises it in the earth as which we live, the stars, the planets suspended within our view, in the elements above and around us, in every blade of grass and every form of life within our vision. This paragraph here, reread, chew on it. It's immensely, immensely strong. I feel like rereading it to you right now. But I will not. I'm giving you that homework because it's not enough for me to reread it. And you're listening to it is always good, but it's you doing the work. This is how you're going to get results. It's you doing the work. It's not me doing the work. Okay, I'm doing the work, but it's you actually doing it. So reread this paragraph and start pulling out a deeper meaning. The more you do it, you start pulling out deeper meanings of what it means. And then as time goes by, you've been doing it a week, a month, 6 months down the road, you'll be a different person. Each time you revisit it, you'll understand it deeper and deeper. Something else will jump out to you and be like, oh, I didn't know that was there. It's because you're at a different place in your life. Make sense? Then Napoleon Hill gives you another homework assignment. We're adding a lot of homework to you right now. He starts, and he's talking about the principles again. He said, above all, do not stop nor hesitate in your study of these principles. He's talking about the 13 principles. I repeat it again. Above all, do not stop nor hesitate in your study of these principles until you have read this book at least 3 times, for then you will not want to stop. Read it one more time. He's talking about mastery of all the principles. Above all, do not stop nor hesitate in your study of these principles until you have read this book at least 3 times. Then you will not want to stop. So that's homework number 3. So 3, once you finish the book, you come back and you reread it. You read it at least 3 times. And you will not want to stop learning, mastering these principles. There's no way you can master these principles reading the book 1 time. There's no way you can master these principles when you read it 3 times. But what Napoleon Hill is saying to you, once you read the book 3 times, you would not want to stop learning. You would want to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the 13 principles and mastery and mastering yourself, because that's really what it's really about. You're learning to master yourself and master your thoughts. That's the great news. And I'll give you a tip. This is how I do it. And I've explained this. We'll explain this in another course. This isn't about cramming. This isn't about binge watching. Okay? So we're learning some really bad habits when we go to school and we study. This is why when you've done different personal development seminars, you go to seminars, or maybe you see me in person, maybe you haven't. Maybe you're just watching me within this membership site, within this course. But it's not about cramming. Okay? It's not about binge watching. These are just bad habits we've learned through studying in high school, middle school, college. We just cram the night before, repeat the information, spit it back on the test. We forget it, out of sight, out of mind. We never really learned it, applied it to our life. We're just cramming. That's all we are. Then you take that same strategy you learned in school. Then you go to all these seminars, and buy these personal development books, and you do the same exact thing, but you're not getting no results, and you think it doesn't work. None of this personal development stuff works, but it does work. And what Napoleon Hill has said in here, that it's not the principles. If you fail, it's not the principles. It's not the book. It's not the 13 principles. It's not the personal development program. It's you. You're doing it wrong. This is how I would read. Read a chapter a day. I believe there's 15 chapters in this book. Read one chapter a day, which you'll probably finish it in 10 minutes. If you read a chapter a day, you'll finish the book in 2 weeks. Once the 2 weeks, you start over again. You read a chapter a day again. So in a month, you've read the book twice. In 2 months, you read the book 4 times. I'm not sitting down and binge reading. One chapter a day. Now sometimes, even in my reading routine, sometimes I might read 2 or 3 chapters. But I'm not rushing myself. I'm not rushing to try to just get through it and get the book done. So, one chapter a day. That's how you should be reading and studying. So now the chapter goes on. We're going to finish this up rather quickly. He gives an example. He gives an example on the creative imagination and big business and big ideas. He gives an example on the enchanted kettle. That's a great read. I won't go through it. He gives another example of what would I do if I had $1 million. That's a great example and a powerful example. And one of the things he says here, using that example, how I got $1 million. Napoleon Hill says he got the money within 36 hours after he reached a definite decision in his own mind to get it and decided upon a definite plan for getting it. He made up a definite decision and made a definite plan how to get it, and he achieved it within 36 hours. That's power. He also says God seems to throw himself aside of the man or woman who knows exactly what he wants, if he is so determined to get just that. And he also says, a little bit farther down the page, if you are one of those who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish that thought. It is not true. Riches, when they come in huge quantities, are never the result of hard work. Riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands based upon the application of definite principles and not by chance or luck. And he's talking about the mastery of the 13 principles. The 13 principles are really universal law, the laws of the universe. It's there. Let me read this paragraph one more time. It's so powerful. If you are one of those who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring you riches, Perish that thought. It is not true. Riches, when they come in huge quantities, are never the result of hard work. Riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands based upon the application and definite principles and not by chance or luck. And Napoleon Hill ends this paragraph, the chapter, with this quote: "Success requires no explanations. Failure requires no alibis." One more time. Success requires no explanations, and failure permits no alibis. That's the end. And I want to leave you with this thought. I want you to chew on it. Okay? A lot of powerful things. A lot of powerful things in this chapter. And I read this one more time, and we're end this module. If you are one of those who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish that thought. Riches, when they come in huge quantities, are never the result of hard work. Riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands based upon the application of definite principles and not by chance or luck.